Do a video for the boardroom.
Good morning, guys.
Morning. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sterling Higa, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd now like to call to order the July 2nd, 2025 Kakaako Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The time is now 9:01 a.m.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's Kakaako Board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. The HCDA communications staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted for clearer audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourselves to speak. It is important that all individuals clearly state their name, pseudonym, or other identifier name each time prior to speaking. If you wish to provide oral testimony and you are attending virtually, please indicate so by clicking the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen. If you are attending in person, you will be called to the front of the room in the order that you signed up. All testimony will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Your testimony must be related to an item on the agenda. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you identify yourself and speak your name, spell your name for the record. When 1 minute is remaining, 1 minute remains will be called out, and when 30 seconds is remaining, 30 seconds remain will be called out. When time has elapsed, time will be called out, after which you will have 30 seconds to conclude your testimony, and then your audio will be turned off. If you are attending in person, the presiding officer will call the next testifier. Keep in mind, this is an opportunity to share your thoughts with us. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to provide an answer. If the authority's connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed until the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. HCDA board members, please remain visible and audible during the meeting, and please acknowledge you are present by either saying here or present. Before I proceed with the roll call, I'd like to welcome Ms. Sabrina Nasir. Member Nasir is an ex officio designee of the Department of Budget and Finance. So welcome back, Member Nasir.
Thank you.
All right, let the record reflect that the following members are present. Vice Chair Ishii.
Here.
You, Secretary Lidstone.
You.
Member Miranda Johnson.
Here.
Thank you. Member Nasir.
Here.
Thank you. Member Evans.
Here.
Thank you. Member Strikes.
Here.
Thank you. Member China.
Here.
Thank you. And Member Sakota.
Here.
Great. Thank you, members. For today's meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after an agenda item has been presented. Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony or on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted to provide their testimony respectively. Moving to agenda item number 2, approval of minutes. These are the regular meeting minutes of June 4th, 2025. Board members, are there any comments or corrections to these minutes? I just have one, and that is the adjournment time was 10:03 a.m. We are efficient, but not that efficient to finish in 9 minutes.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions, board members? Okay, seeing none, the minutes are approved with the corrections noted. Agenda item number 3 is decision making. To consider authorizing the executive director to implement a supplemental financing and buyback plan for reserved housing units within the Ulana Ward Village project located at 828 Awahi Street, Honolulu, Hawaii 96813, and further described by tax map key number 2-1-053001 that are proposed to be sold by the reserved housing unit owners during the regulated term. Such plan containing the 1, actions to be taken by HCDA upon a proposed sale of said reserved housing units, and 2, supplemental financing to be utilized by the HCDA to buy back said reserved housing units. Ms. Lindsay Doy, Asset Manager, will now present the staff report.
Good morning, members. This action item is related to the one from last month. This one specifically outlines the proposed options that we would have upon receiving a unit for buyback in the Ulana project. So as you know, the Ulana Ward Village project is coming online at the end of this year. There are just under 700 reserve housing units, which is the largest reserve housing project we have ever done. So we are anticipating at least a few buybacks potentially. And so that's why we want to come up with this plan so that we're prepared if and when it happens. All of those units have a range of 2 to 10-year regulated terms. So anytime within that regulated term, if that unit owner can no longer live in the unit, it would be eligible for buyback by the HCDA. So pursuant to Hawaii administrative rules, we do have a few options relating to the buyback. We can either waive it, agree to buy it back, or provide a substitute buyer. So given the rules, we've come up with 4 potential options for your approval today. The first option 1 in your packet, is pretty much what we currently do. That's our current policy for buyback. Either we, the HCDA, can buy it back with our funds, or we can designate the Hawaii Homeownership Center, which we already have an agreement with, to buy back on our behalf. If we do go that route, then the reserve housing unit would enter their affordable housing program. So it would leave HCDA's reserve housing program and become one of their units in their inventory, which would keep it affordable, but it would be one of theirs. So that is the current policy that we do for buybacks. Option number 2 is something new and different that we are proposing. And this would be looking back at what we're allowed to do by rule, is designating a substitute buyer. So in this instance, we would find a qualified new buyer, so another, family or other qualified person, and we would have that original owner sell the unit to them. So we wouldn't, we would kind of eliminate the middleman of having HCDA or HHOC do that transaction. We would just go direct owner to new buyer. We would need to procure a broker to find designated qualified buyers. They would have to do income, asset qualifications. But this is a potential option that would allow us to keep that unit affordable. We would, of course, restart the regulated term, include the new buyback or the buyback option for the new buyer, as well as the shared equity component. So it really would just be a new reserve housing unit. And we wouldn't need to expend any of our funds to purchase that unit back. So that helps us out from a funding standpoint. So that is a new option number 2. Option number 3 is also something new. This would entail us buying back the unit on our own, so expending however much that unit costs, and then procuring a property manager to rent that unit out to a qualified renter. So this would also keep it affordable, but it would require us to oversee and manage the rental of that unit for the duration of that original regulated term. The 4th option is a little bit different than what we currently do, which relates to the waiver. So right now we are able to waive our buyback option, which we have done in the past. We typically do that if we or HHOC is not able to purchase and buy back the unit. In that case, we would waive. But option number 4 adds to that and says, if we waive, the owner would need to immediately pay the shared equity if they want to rent the unit. Currently, we just collect the shared equity when they sell the unit. But if that owner, can't live in the unit, they need to rent it out, we would then collect the shared equity. So it replenishes our reserve housing fund, which we think is a nice option. So all of these options we think are viable. Options 1 and 3 may require supplemental financing, as I mentioned. Thankfully, we've had talks with our sister agency, HHFDC, and they've generously offered to loan us some of their dwelling unit revolving fund, DERF, up to $3 million of their DERF funds for the first 2 years. So we would add that money to our existing reserve housing sub-account funding, which is currently about $11 million. And we would have a pool of approximately $40 million to spend on buying back or, procuring brokers, things like that. So these again are just potential options for your consideration. If approved today, we would, on a case-by-case basis, evaluate each unit available for buyback and apply one of these four options, whichever we think is the most viable and beneficial to the agency.
Great, thank you. Members, are there any questions or comments? Member Evans.
For Ulana Ward,
Mhm.
can you remind me what the regulated term is?
Sure. So the regulated term under the 2005 rules, which is what all of the Howard Hughes projects are vested under, it varies from 2 to 10 years based on the price, the purchase price. The majority of units in Ulana, just because of the way they were priced, are 5-year regulated terms. So there's about 500 units with 5-year terms. Just a small handful, 52 units, have the short 2-year regulated terms, and then the remainder, 144 units, have the long 10-year regulated terms. So collectively, there's going to be about 650 units that have a lengthier term where people may have life-changing events that they want to go through buyback.
Yep, Member Evans.
Of the 4 proposed options, do any of them allow HCDA to keep the unit affordable longer than the regulated term?
You mean the original regulated term?
Yes, the original regulated.
Good question. Yes, but we, I think, would be limited to the 2005 rules. So we would say 10 years would be the maximum. We couldn't make it 20, 30, but we could, I think, make it 10 years, some of these options, because we would be doing a new unilateral declaration for the new owner. And so we could make it 10 years. We would just have to probably deal with pricing accordingly, since that is tied to the pricing.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Evans. Member Sakota.
Good morning. For option 2, is there an actual wait list for the units?
Good question. So we've been talking with Howard Hughes, Ward Village. They do have a wait list, but it is different, according to the individual buyer and what they qualify for, their family size versus the units available. So they do have a wait list for some units and shorter wait lists for others. So yes, certain units, we would be looking at very carefully whether to proceed with, buying it back, because if they don't have a wait list, we don't want to be holding a unit.
Gotcha. My other comment is I think we should go ahead and apply for the 3 million supplemental funds just to have liquidity available to us.
Yeah.
And then my third question is based on Member Evans. If we actually do option 3, does the HCA control that as affordable, like indefinitely, as a rental unit?
So option 3 right now is listed as, we would only manage it as a rental unit for that original regulated term. So if it was
Okay.
5-year regulated term, we would do it for 5 years. I hesitate to commit to perpetuity only because that is an unknown cost. So
Right.
up to 10 years, I think, it's a little bit more manageable.
And then Member Sakota, as to the 3 million, from DERF, we are gonna commit to it. It's gonna be kind of like structured, almost like a line of credit. And if we need it, we'll draw down on it. But our first preference is to use the funds in our reserve housing subaccount, which Lindsay mentioned is about $11 million. And then if we need more money, is to tap into DERF. And then as Lindsay mentioned in her staff report, the use of that is going to require a separate agreement with HHFDC and subject to their board approval. But yes, we intend to utilize that line in case we need it, only as a second resort.
And the final question, just for my guide, I kind of looking at the other buildings in Ward Village and across Kakaako, there's sort of been a shock factor as far as dealing with the insurance of the building, and like an immediate special assessment to cover those costs. So I'm not sure what that number is going to be and what the impact is going to be on the actual payments for the residents there. But I anticipate there's going to be some financial stress of actually covering the monthly payments for those units by those residents. So I'm not sure if just as a heads up to keep that in mind as to how we deal with that. It's not really our business, but ultimately it becomes in our best interest to address those issues. But have you heard or felt any of those repercussions coming down the pipe?
So I can speak a little to that. So with some of Ward Village's other projects where they did have substantial maintenance fee increase right off the bat. I know in the setting of pricing, when we had the development permit hearings, we pointed to that and we said, hey, these reserve studies, these estimations need to be better. They need to be a little bit more realistic so you don't have something that happened like at Keiki Lohana. So they did take that into consideration and they did, I think, look at, their projections a little bit better. So hopefully you won't see what happened at Keiki Lohana. But what I have been hearing, at least in the past year, more than that, it's been the interest rate. So all of these buyers qualified at a 4.7-ish interest rate. Now those are closer to 6-7%. So that has made a large difference in their expected mortgage payment. The insurance payment and all of that, aside, I think that's been the biggest concern for a lot of families who may or may not have lost jobs or have seen cuts in funding for their jobs. So that is a really real concern for us, and that we've been talking with the developer about, how to address it. And I think that's also why we're coming to you with these options in advance, because we are anticipating for some, it may land them in a buyback situation potentially. We hope not, but just in case.
Yeah, remember, Sakota, if I can expand a little bit on how, what Lindsay said. I mean, I think where, the higher insurance costs, the higher homeowners insurance costs to homeowners, where it's gonna kind of really, I think, affect, buyers, and they're thinking about whether they can afford to buy something like this and make the payments, is the homeowners insurance costs along with HOA costs, along with their, mortgage payment and other costs of home ownership. Typically for, affordability range is about a third of their income. So, to the extent that insurance and all those other home ownership costs starts to go, above a third, it's gonna put a lot of stress on owners and could even exacerbate things where we're gonna see more, requests for buyback.
Thank you, Member
Okay, great.
Sakota. Vice Chair Ishii?
Yeah, Member Sakota, just to give you an update as far as the insurance cost is concerned, the insurance price, especially on the HOA side, has been stabilizing over the past year. In fact, from a perspective, what we're seeing out from the secondary markets, the property rates and the hurricane rates have actually gone down as far as this past year. We've seen about an average of around 20% reduction in property rates due to the reinsurance costs starting to be more stabilized out in the global market. So insurance rates are not as challenging as it might have been maybe 2 years ago, when there were a lot of different elements and catastrophic situations that were going on. But we're starting to see that stabilize. Hopefully that will, with Howard Hughes and other developers starting to take into a better consideration on their projections and their planning. The challenge was a lot of these projections were done when the project was being built. And
Right.
so the rates were at a lower rate when they were calculating out the maintenance calculations, and they got caught in between. But I know they've made a very strong effort in taking a look at what historically has been occurring and taking that more into consideration, as Lindsay stated, to give a more realistic picture for the individuals. And in respect to what Lindsay stated in as far as interest rates is concerned, that has been, as you're well aware, the biggest concern from a buyer perspective. These were locked in at lower interest rates or were being looked at lower interest rates, and today the interest rates have are substantially higher.
Thanks, Jason. This one final question from me. Have the financial side of it been settled? Have the units been closed on and the rates agreed upon yet?
So right now, all of the buyers are moving through a timeline. So their closing timeline is gonna start in about November, December. So all of their their units will close at the end of the year. Right now, though, I believe they already just obtained their loan approval. So they've been talking to lenders, shopping around. And that's why I say a lot of them have ended up with a 6 to 7% interest rate. And so they are going into escrow, I think, right now, so they're kind of in it
Gotcha.
right now.
Okay, thanks, Lindsay.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yep, Member Schwartz.
Thanks, Chair. Looks like you thought through this pretty well. Got a good range of options here. I just was interested in getting some clarification on options 1 and 2. So it looks like in both cases, the ability to both cases allow the ability to reset the term up to what you were saying was a maximum of 10 years for the unit over the life of the regulation.
Yes, so our rules set the term 2, 5, or 10 based on the affordability of the unit, so what the owner would pay for the unit. So with a buyback and a resale to a new buyer, we could restart the regulated term. And I believe, if it's like a 5-year term and if we wanted to make it a 10-year, I think if we played with it might get a little different with option 2 because we are not a party to the sale. We're kind of just the person who brings the two players together. That one might be hard because there is a buyback price, that factors into that original buyer's shared equity. So that price is set, which I believe then that second buyer, because their purchase price is set, you can't really play with the regulated term because the purchase price is set, and you would need to play with the purchase price in order to change the regulated term. But we can discuss further with RAG and see if there's any opportunity. But generally, yes, we would be able to restart that regulated term, and it'll probably be the 5 and 10-year terms because those are the types of folks who come to us for buyback.
Okay, and so in order for option 2 to utilize the broker, that I guess HCDA would be responsible for paying, is that right?
Yes, so my staff could do it, but I think rather not. We'd rather have an expert who is a licensed broker who can go and shop around with the interested buyers that they know of through their companies, and then they can bring them in and do the income asset qualifications, and we can say, yes, this is a qualified buyer, this is a unit we have, they want a 2-bedroom unit, let's set them up. So yes, that is a service that we would need to procure separately.
And so I assume that would be considered a qualified expense from the Affordable Housing Fund?
I think so. Yeah, I think we could expend out of that 11 million. Yeah.
Okay. So then I guess I'm struggling to find the value in option 1. It looks like you have it ranked as priority number 1 in terms of your preferences. So, I mean, I guess option 1 would require HCDA to provide all the closing costs, right? Which is a lot more than just paying the brokerage.
So yes and no. So option 1, I think we have it ranked first only because it's the easiest in terms of workload. We don't need to do a separate procurement, at least not right now, because we do have the Hawaii Home Ownership Center. There are cons to it. So if HHOC buys it back on their own, we lose the unit from our inventory. So we lose the shared equity, we lose the unit. They benefit from it and they get the affordability and they keep it affordable. But it's easy in the sense of, I just send them the packet, I send them the appraisal and they do everything from there. So staff wise, we actually don't spend any time. Option two, we would need to procure the broker, we would need to find, this pool of buyers. When a new unit comes available for buyback, we would need to, tell the broker, hey, I've got a 2-bedroom, do you have anyone? And kind of facilitate that. I agree that option two has very strong pros and very strong benefits. It just will require some additional legwork, but that's not to say it's bad.
But wouldn't that legwork just be upfront? And then once you have a broker selected, they would just be on call for all the subsequent?
Yes, but for each new unit, we would need to do a new unilateral declaration with the new buyer. So that would be my staff. We probably wouldn't outsource that. So I would write a new unilateral with a new regulated term. I would have to calculate the shared equity, which means I would need to take the appraisal into effect. So there is a degree of work that would need to be done. To your point, option one, that would be the same if HCDA bought it back on our own. We would have to do all that legwork as well. Right now, we don't do that. We have not purchased back a unit on our own. We've relied on our partners. So HHFDC in the past has bought back some units on our behalf. And then right now we have the agreement with HHOC. They have not yet purchased back a unit though.
Okay, and so you were mentioning once the HHOC takes over, it's really like under their purview.
It would be.
Our agreement with them has some requirements about the
Yes.
affordability.
Yes.
Okay, so they would still have to regulate it for certain terms.
They would, yeah,
Okay.
they would under their program. So they had their, I think they call it like an affordable housing program that we had approved by the board maybe a year ago, I'm not too sure. And in that program, they have certain asset income restrictions, certain purchase price limitations. I think they actually go beyond our program and they keep it affordable longer than we do. So that I think is a benefit to the community as well.
Okay, yeah, I was just thinking, it's kind of like, maybe almost like a sub priority within that option. It might be good to utilize this over option two. I guess when there's units up for sale that are closer to the end of their term to maximize
To restart.
the time
Mhm,
that
mhm.
the unit is in affordability
Yep.
restricted term.
Mhm.
Or maybe in cases where option two isn't viable, like if there's no wait list or there's some sort of emergency
Yep.
situation, because otherwise it would seem like we could get more value out of our affordable housing fund
Mhm.
by not, I mean, I guess by not doing that sort of buyback option.
Agreed. So each unit, as they come up for buyback, we would look at that and I agree with you that in those cases, yes, those options would be preferable.
Yeah,
Question.
member Nesbitt.
I just wanted to clarify, so even though these 4 options are ranked in order of priority, you're still going to look at other factors like the wait list and then the option 2 actually is more preferable.
Correct.
I just wanted to.
And perhaps that was a little confusing how we said preference. So it's, I think, a more general preference, not case by case. So we will still look at each unit case by case and apply the option that is best suited to that unit. I think just in general, we would prefer not to waive. That's why it's option 4. But if the case arises where, it's a studio, there's no wait list, it's, just not a good deal, we probably would waive that, as our first priority.
Thank you,
And,
thanks, Chair.
and member Nasser, I think, as Lindsay pointed out too, I mean, we don't, a preference is not to wait. But there may be instances when, depending on the unit type, other conditions, we may have to waive some, but that's not gonna be definitely our first preference. definitely.
Members, any other comments or
Member Miranda Johnson.
questions? Member Miranda Johnson? No?
No?
Okay.
Thought she had heard them. Okay.
Seeing no further questions or comments, we'll move now to public testimony. Do we have any persons pre-signed up for testimony? Any persons present or online who wish to provide testimony? Seeing none, we will close public testimony. Members, any comments or questions? I will be looking for a motion. Is there a motion for the board to authorize the executive director to implement a supplemental financing and buyback plan for reserved housing units within the Ulana Ward Village project located at 828 Oahe Street, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813, and further described by tax map key number 2-1-053001 that are proposed to be sold by the reserved housing unit owners during the regulated term, such plan containing the 1, actions to be taken by HCDA upon a proposed sale of said reserved housing units, and 2, supplemental financing to be utilized by the HCDA to buy back said reserved housing units as described in this staff report and undertake all tasks necessary to effectuate the purpose of this 4 action except for 1, additional buyback options, 2, other means of supplemental financing, 3, using other HCDA special funds, or 4, a change in the buyback expenditure limit. Do I hear such a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Sakota, seconded by member Nasser. Members, any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll ask Lindsay to take the roll call vote.
All right, members, the motion has been made and seconded. On that motion, member Nasser,
Aye.
member Evans,
Aye.
member Streets,
Aye.
member China,
Aye.
member Sakota,
Yes.
Vice Chair Ishii,
Yes.
Secretary Lidstone,
Aye.
member Miranda Johnson,
Yes.
and Chair Higa.
Yes.
The motion passes with 9 yes votes.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Great, thank you. We'll move now to agenda item number 4. This is the report of the executive director, a monthly report and other status reports, including approved permit applications that did not require HRS 206E-5.6 public hearings. Executive Director Nakamoto will now provide his monthly report.
Thanks, Chair. The executive director report is coming in at 3 of your packet. Want to report out on Kolawala Park. It's been closed for repairs and grass maintenance. We expect that the park will reopen on July 7th. Our landscaper has been doing some things to improve the grass and kind of fill in all the bare spots. And then we've made repairs to items that like the gate that was vandalized, so we expect to open on July 7th. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Director. Members, comments or questions for Director Nakamoto? Seeing no comments or questions, we'll go to public testimony. Do we have any persons pre-signed up for public testimony? Any persons present or online who wish to provide public testimony? Seeing none, we will close public testimony. Members, any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll move to adjourn this meeting and we'll move immediately into the at-large authority meeting. So thank you to those who joined us on Zoom or in person. This concludes our business for today. The meeting is adjourned. The time is 9:34 a.m.